Professor Jyoti, Dean, Goa Business School, the keynote speaker for the function, Professor Dayanand, my colleagues from Goa Business School, of course from other schools too, from the university, all the delegates, students, media personnel. In fact, I am very pleased to stand here, and I must also congratulate Dr. Pinky Pavaskar for taking this initiative, because this is very pertinent and this is the need of the hour. When I make that statement, we know that since time immemorial, Goa has been identified as a destination for tourism. And if you see, let's say around 3 decades back, things were in the proper shape, things were in our control. But now we realize that there are many challenges. Challenges in the form of environmental degradation, challenges in form of cultural inversion, challenges in the form of socio-economic imbalance. So all those things are happening, and as a result there is an unrest. Tourism is such that you have to have a holistic approach. Why I say holistic approach? Because even I have seen that there are fish where there is a nano plastics in its stomach. So that is the way things are going ahead. One side you are enjoying, but other side you are destroying the whole ecosystem, and that will create our future generation in a very, the unsustainable ecosystem where they won't be able to. You can see, in fact, you can see the kind of diseases people below even 19 years are suffering from. AI has, taken different spheres of human life. One example I always say is what I witness in the airport. Like if you travel in international airports, we would see that around 5 to 6 years back, there used to be 5 to 6 security guards to check your ticket, check your boarding pass, etc., etc. But now if you travel from Singapore, you will find that only one security guard is there to check your luggage. So when I asked myself that what happened to remaining 5, the answer is that these are all replaced with the AI-based algorithm. So when this AI-based algorithm takes care of this, it's only one airport. When you have 1 lakh airport across the world, how many people are losing job? In fact, they are not losing job. Rather, it's the responsibility of the university and higher education to reskill and upskill this workforce. That is what you have to do. So you have to have research, identify or understand the root cause of the tourism related problems in Goa, research on that. And when you do research, I would say that you have a methodology, like for example on the basis of questionnaire you generate data. Blue water economy, deep sea mission. Under blue water economy and deep sea mission, there are 16 lakh crores of rupees have been earmarked for the next 10 years. So any research in this respect comes, it's always most welcome, because only through research you can solve. Therefore, I urge this august body, please look in that sense, please think out of the box. See that this is you identify the problem, this is the problem, this is one of the reason why let's take the case of environmental degradation due to this tourism. Try to solve that, how it could be done. So do a research. We are now coming out with an app. We have already published this in the international journals, so that when you have a publication in the international journal, the kind of confidence you get will be boosted. Now we realize that it has to percolate to the common man. Therefore, there is 25% of the population in Goa, depending their life on the fishing activity. We have come out with an app wherein through that app, you can identify potential fishing zone from the satellite data. And if you have a GPS, you will be directly taken to that position, cast your net and get the maximum catch out of that. So that is the kind of work we have done. And one more for the Navy, that is for the visibility from the satellite data, basically to identify the mines which enemy people keep in the coastal waters. So how to get that so that this will be useful for a diver. So these are 2 things, and many more we are planning.
A few things come to my mind when I start looking at tourism, after having seen it for quite some time here and elsewhere in the world as well. Tourism has been identified as an industry, but essentially it's a phenomena. It's a phenomena of experiences at a destination in which a large number of industries are intricately involved. Secondly, because of the certain type of resources that are used in tourism, like water, mountains, land, rivers, seas, beautiful locations, sceneries, almost all natural resources are taken for granted, right? And that is the place where we start looking at increased return on investments for stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I am looking at even regulators as well as people in the business. So what happens is, we know there is a resource, and we think that that's going to be the panacea for economic freedom of a particular society. But that isn't the case. We have 16 to 17% of Goa state GDP coming from tourism, which is sizable. So with this concept of development, we start looking at increased levels of contribution from tourism. Where does it come from? You have to use some of the resources at a destination to increase the level of contribution to the economy. And this is something which needs to be regulated. I'm not saying it has to be stopped or it has to be, the growth has to be stunted, but it needs to be regulated. Where are you going to get this increased revenue from? What are the kind of resources that are going to give you this revenue? And this is where sustainability comes into picture. One of the things which tourism is relatively famous for is its resource utilization. Every destination has got different kinds of resources. And when I'm saying resources, I'm not just talking about physical resources, I'm talking about intellectual resources which are there available with the state's population. We need to look at these resources in terms of quantity and quality so that we are able to manage it sustainably. Almost all planned researches, almost all planned destinations rather, go by research, as our Honorable Vice Chancellor said. And most of these go through a process called tourism resource audit. All the resources of a destination are audited. And when I say audit, I'm not talking about audit as in what is wrong and what is right, which is there normally in a financial audit. What I'm talking about is what is the quality and quantity of the audit of the resource that can be audited so that we can have a clear-cut policy on how best to use the resources. What would be the quantum of resources that needs to be used and the pattern of the usage of that resource. In 1986, TCS came out with a report which said that Goa will have its full capacity utilization in 2020 with 4 million tourists. In 2018-19, we had 8 million tourists, right? 2023, we had 7.2 million tourists. Now the question is, where does this excess tourism come from? It's basically nothing but building up the capacity. And it is here that everyone in the society, or all stakeholders in the society, have a stake in increasing the capacity or capacity building. At the university, we have this role of building capacity as far as human resources is concerned. We have the onerous responsibility of looking at research which is on the ground so that we can give inputs for sustainable resource utilization.
One thing is, when we talk of sustainability or sustainable tourism, a lot of people think it is expensive. It is something that you'll end up spending a lot of money on, okay? I disagree completely, where it is not an initiative. It should not be run as an initiative, but a part of your life, a part of company's life. And for newer companies which are coming up, like for soul traveling, for what Parag is doing, it is the only way we can run business. If we are not sustainable, we don't survive, okay? And it is something that I also, want to address, that slowly there should be more and more companies which are One, commercially viable and in a sustainable space. So commercial viability is very important because finally when people look to make a career into this industry, tourism, experiential tourism, offbeat tourism or sustainable tourism, it needs to sustain their needs also. It cannot be just something that people are doing as a hobby or as a social service. It should be integrated in the mainstream of your job. Only then we'll be able to actually implement in the way that we want to, right? We always hear things that okay, sustainability will happen secondary. I will do my job first, and then if I have say an hour of time, I will dedicate it to sustainability. It is a very short-term approach. In long-term approaches, you need to make sure it's a part of your daily life. It is right from you're sitting here, you're practicing it, to when you're working. As an individual, you're practicing, and on a broader scale, the company is also practicing it. So that is something that should come naturally, and especially to the newer companies which are coming up, it should be a part of your life that sustainability is something that is here to stay. I would urge more and more people, students, and everyone else to participate in this. So together we can make Goa as the best state for tourism, experiential tourism, not only in India but in the world. So that is what we should aim for.
Everybody is talking about the sustainability. And I think rather than everybody knows what's to be done for sustainability, but that how we take it forward. And I think the job will lie with the next gen who are sitting at back, all the students. Because unless you start following it up and correcting the people in and around, things will not change. What we see lack in Goa, I think that that education for the tourists who come in, even for that matter, even it goes to locals also, because ultimately if you have to save our beaches, we need to, each step of our activity, it may be tourism or otherwise, are linked to the preservation. So throwing your garbage at wrong places, and breaking bottles on the beach. There is a common thing which we read in the papers and which we experience day to day. So how we can correct that? I think that is a one key factor which we should introspect and look into it. As we are aware that today if tourists comes, they come for specific the things which we have to show it to them. So unless we preserve that, unless we sustain them, I think we'll see the downfall in the tourism footfalls. And as we like it or don't like it, the tourism is a main economy in Goa, and it is a main circular economy in Goa, where it gives a maximum employment generation. And of course, economy-wise, it may be just giving you 18% of our total GDP. But as far as employment generation concerned, it feeds almost 6 lakh people in Goa. If we take population of 15 lakhs, we are talking almost of 33% plus. So I think this is the key which we should look into it. For the sustainability of entrepreneurs also has to think about when they start any venture, to look into the sustainability part of it, which is for his own good, and the in and around people who are staying should not get disturbed. Waste is everywhere. There are collection agencies, different places, at the government level. We are requesting there has to be nodal agencies which monitors your panchayat waste, your municipality waste, your other garbages which are in and around. And garbage is a very sensitive issue, and it is very costly abroad. If you do the collection of garbage, you need to pay a cost for it. So main thing, we have to look into it. We have a different treatment plan for bio waste also we have planned in Goa. But that segregation, that education needs to come, and people needs to follow. Like today what's happening in Goa, what we are saying that garbage is of everyone, but nobody wants to own it. This is, I don't want garbage at my back end. No, that cannot happen. So we need to, of course now the new technologies are involved where there are less of smell coming in, and the processes are simple. But then this is the key which has to be on continuous note, because garbage is a major issue wherever you go, and especially if you take any touristic place, and Goa if you talk, wherever you go, minus beaches you may have cleaning agency, but outside there are a lot of garbage, and these are the key which will not help in the sustainability for the key. Just to add on this, there are many foreign tourists have disowned Goa, or the big numbers which were coming in and charters, they no more coming into Goa. The major issue is because of the garbage. Used to get a lot of tourists from Finland earlier. Now tourists are not coming specifically stating that because it's dirty. So now that is of course a part of sustainability, and this will happen not now, it's been happening with the foreign tourists, and if we don't change ourselves, we rest assured the domestic tourist also will show the back. So for our own sustainability, I think we need to look in this aspect very seriously. Renewable energy, I think everywhere we have a lot of things which conferences are happening in and around, and I think that is a way forward. Solar energy, government of India is talking, government of Goa is talking, and of course in G20 that was one of the thing of renewable energy key. So I think that is a way forward for sustainability of tourism. Cultural preservation, I think that is the key. We need to censor sustainable tourism, respect and preserve Goa's rich cultural heritage. Initiative focus on maintaining traditional practices, supporting local artisans and organizing cultural events that enhance visitor experience while respecting the local way of life. There are already, my friend Varun is doing it on that. Parag Bhai is also doing on the similar line. So I think this is where the culture aspect is brought forward, and the smallest denomination of the people who are working in industry benefit out of it. So I think, and wherever world over we go, what we have rich culture, heritage, but we don't package ourselves well. So now we have Varun who is doing good packaging on that aspect. We have even Parag who is doing good packaging on that. So basically it's how you present yourself, how you market those products. Like in Panjim itself, if we talk about, we have two of the best heritage sites in Panjim itself. You have Adil Shah Palace, which is pre-Portuguese era. Now you see the preservation there. You know, it is just you show the tourists from outside, that's it. You have oldest medical college in Asia, which is at near Inox, which is now VSG headquarters, built in 1832. So we have this. I'm talking in Panjim itself. Now, how much efforts we have taken to market that? That is for everybody else to guess here.
Usually, when somebody asks me, what sustainable tourism or what sustainability means, I try and ask myself what that word actually means, and have we really understood it? For me, sustainability is something, that sustains over a longer period of time. That's the basic meaning, sometimes over generations. With that perspective in mind, I am, and I'll be happy to be proven wrong, that we as a species, as a race, I don't think we can do anything that is sustainable. It's a beautiful word, but very loosely used. It's attached to anything, and people love to use it. It looks nice in annual reports and stuff, but I don't think people really understand what it means. So when you don't understand what it means, I think you don't really do justice to it. That's my personal opinion. When it comes to tourism, I don't prefer using the word sustainable. I prefer using the word responsible, because it makes me much more grounded, that as a service provider or as a tourist, I know very well, that I can be responsible in whatever I do. I can be responsible in the way I choose things. I can be responsible in the way I, conduct myself, and so on and so forth. So responsible is what, I would, as a term, I would use that. Then as a responsible service provider, how do I judge myself as a responsible, provider or a service provider? I ask myself a few questions. I actually ask myself a lot of questions. But for example, am I when I speak of responsibility or sustainability, I come from the background of nature, wildlife, and I work with local communities. So all my grounding is from there. So I try and ask myself questions like, in whatever I do, am I trying to integrate the natural beauty of that place? Am I trying to adjust myself to the daily life of the local communities? For example, in one of the projects that we did, there was a lot of interest for people to come during Ganesh Chaturthi. Okay, but if you ask the people, now from marketing point of view, it's a great opportunity for me. But when you ask the local communities, they say that there is already a lot of pressure on them with relatives and whatever during Chaturthi. Then, am I adding more pressure on them? this is a question as a service provider that I need to ask, be responsible, as I was trying to say. So lot of questions. Am I strengthening local, structures? Am I, for example, instead of, buying land and setting up a homestay or a lodge, can I work with the local communities and set up a homestay, make maybe a women's self-help group run the homestay? Those are the things, that we ask ourselves. And I think the most important question that I ask myself is, in whatever I do, is there a component of conservation and education? If at the end of a trip, a guest who's come to me doesn't go back a little more well informed, if it doesn't go back with a little bit of respect for the land and its people, I have failed. If this is the most important question that I ask myself. If I can do that, then I can, very proudly say that I'm a responsible, service provider.
COVID, I don't want to talk about it in a very negative way, but yes, it did happen. And I think many Indians actually woke up to what a clean air meant, or what chirping birds meant, outside your buildings and balconies, what not using of vehicles did to our roads, to our air at that point. Now we have vehicles which talk about AQI, more about it when we talk about it, and as an industry expert and as a hotelier and as somebody who's heading the hospitality vertical, what we have done as responsible citizens and responsible hoteliers to address those aspects of sustainability and energy is what I will speak. I've become more of an engineer now in my new role, and of course I think I'm a responsible citizen, and I think we need to be humble, and we need to learn from the European countries and what's happening abroad. There are bodies and associations and large panels at government levels who are talking about saving the earth. I know we cannot reach there, but from our own households and from our own conscience, I think we can contribute this much, and that as a large population of this country can contribute so much of pollution-free country, energy-efficient country, a youth which is ready to take on the nation in the times to come. And on that note, I'm so looking forward to contributing from my side as a hotelier, as a human being, as an individual who cares for the earth.
Actually, if you put in 3 keywords of sustainable tourism and look at the Scopus database, there are about 23,000 publications that pop up. You add the word Goa there, and about 18 pop up there. And so we are, there is a lot of interest in sustainability in tourism in Goa. We as academics, I don't think have, reached that stage of maturity where we can contribute in a significant way, but we would like to. And I think as the problems grow, there is windows of opportunity that open up both for new businesses as well as for those who wish to see, the economy sustain itself. And I think Parag gives a great word, and I would also second what Ma'am Neetu said here is on responsibility. But responsibility lies with multiple stakeholders, and those stakeholders, some of are represented here, some of them are not. And maybe we should look back and say, whose responsibility are we thinking about? Is it the government? Is it the community? Is it the individual? Is it the firm, the industry? And from the little that I understand of the tourism industry in Goa, it's a very, in a way, fragmented industry. Our president of the Tourism Association, Travel and Tourism Association, mentioned multiple stakeholders, and the fact that there are certain stakeholders who are, not aligned to a larger goal of bringing, the sector into a coherent, packaged whole as in a WHOLE, it creates a problem for the receivers of tourism. And I think while we have, amongst these stakeholders are the providers of these services and the receivers of these services. And the responsibility lies on both counts. And then the thing is, responsibility can be inborn, it can be something that you grow up with, or it can be something that can be regulated. And I think the regulation can come both from the government, which is what we are normally used to. Government imposes a tax, it imposes a regulatory mechanism, but it can also be self-imposed, not just by the individual, but by a group of actors. And we see this in multiple places, and places where any firm, any industry, or any business takes off and stays afloat for a long period of time. It is partly because the government is conducive to having those kind of businesses, but it is also the businesses themselves have in some way satisfied other stakeholders so that they don't make it difficult for them to operate. And I think somewhere down the line, animal spirits of entrepreneurship and business have to take into account that there may be people who will want to be part of the whole, surplus that is generated from services like this. And how do we then bring in a social responsibility? And this is not just corporate, it is community, it is individual, all of that into a system which is one of the backbones of the Goan economy. And if you look at the structure of the Goan economy today, while we would like to think of tourism as the major contributor to livelihoods here, it no longer is there. It's manufacturing that is taking over. And so if you look at the tourism inflows into Goa, and if you travel either by train or by bus or by flights, you would see the trend of people coming in. There are lots of business people who come in here. They may come in for business meetings, they may come in for weekend jaunts with their larger corporate groups, but Goa is, and the industry can tell us, is becoming a place where corporate is looking at it as a serious place to come and do discussions. Maybe not set up business, but to come and have side talks, to have group meetings, etc. And so if that is the nature of business that we are looking at, there's also another strange thing that I notice is that while we have large hotel and restaurant chains here, we also have the small entrepreneur who's playing a big role, and we have two of them right here in our midst. And we also have the representative of the large chains here, which is really nice because these are two groups of people who are not necessarily always working in tandem, but I think there is an opportunity there for us to cater to different segments of the industry. And if any industry, any service receiver will come from different categories, and some will look for the luxury home and some will look for something that they already have at home but want to do something differently out here. And I think the challenge for us would lie in how to cater to both these groups of people.